New York hides this secret from the entire world. While the city that never sleeps bustles with its 14.5 million inhabitants, a vast region to the north holds a surprising history that almost no one knows. The contrast is so stark that if upstate New York were an independent state, it would only rank 20th in population in the US. But what happened to this region that was once synonymous with American prosperity? You're about to find out. So join us and let's go. Winter's fury. If there's one thing that defines upstate New York, it's its brutal winters. Syracuse holds the unenviable title of being the snowiest city in the United States, thanks to a phenomenon known as the lake effect. When cold air passes over the warmer waters of Lakes Ontario and Erie, the result is devastating. Snowstorms that can bury entire neighborhoods in a matter of hours. In March 1993, Syracuse experienced one of the most dramatic moments in its history, when more than a meter of snow fell on the city. Residents who survived had to adapt to a routine that seemed like something out of a survival movie, equipping cars with special tires, keeping snowblowers at the ready, and developing an almost superhuman resistance to the cold. And as if the snow weren't enough, the region now faces a new threat: wildfires. A problem that is becoming more frequent due to climate change. The gravitational force of NYC. New York is not just a city, it is a giant magnet that attracts people from all over the world. In 1800, it had only 6,000 inhabitants. Today, more than 8 million in the city alone, not including the metropolitan area. Times Square, Central Park, the Statue of Liberty. Every corner tells a success story that mesmerizes those seeking opportunities. The Big Apple is the hub of finance, fashion, arts, and entertainment. World-class restaurants, famous museums, Broadway theaters, all of this creates a stark contrast to the upstate. While the lights of the big city shine ever brighter, the city's upstate struggle to keep their doors open. It's as if there are two different states within New York. The great population exodus. Upstate New York is at a critical juncture in its history. The numbers don't lie. Since 2020, nearly 80% of the region's cities have seen alarming population declines. Once industrial powerhouses, Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse are now struggling to retain their residents. The situation is so dire that some areas seem on the verge of becoming ghost towns. Population decline isn't just a cold statistic. It's visible in the empty streets, shuttered businesses, and abandoned homes that dot the cityscape. During the pandemic, there was a brief respite as city dwellers sought refuge in quieter areas up north. The Adirondacks and Finger Lakes saw a surge of interest from people seeking space and fresh air. But that movement proved to be only temporary. Once the dust from the pandemic settled, reality set in. Without serious investment in infrastructure and job creation, the region continues to lose its battle to retain its residents. I have a question for you. First, I'd like to tell you that it's possible to keep up with the biggest curiosities of our world every day. But for that, you need to be subscribed to our channel. So, have you subscribed yet? If not, take the opportunity to subscribe now. Now that you've done that, let's go. The fall of the industrial empire. Until the 1960s, upstate New York was an industrial behemoth that made the rest of the country bow down. Buffalo, Syracuse, and Troy were pulsating centers of manufacturing and innovation. Factories operated 24 hours a day, churning out everything from steel to automobiles to textiles. But that industrial empire has crumbled like a house of cards. Automation and outsourcing were hard blows, but the real knockout blow came with the mass factory closures. Young professionals, seeing their ships sinking, began an exodus to big cities, especially New York. The result? A region that was once the economic engine of the state is now struggling with high unemployment, poverty, and a crumbling infrastructure. Cities that once attracted workers from across the country are now barely able to provide opportunities for their own children. A divided state. The contrast between upstate and downstate New York is so stark that it feels like two different countries. While the NYC metropolitan area is teeming with tech startups, international banks, and media companies, the North is seeing its traditional factories close. Kodak and General Electric, once industrial giants that employed thousands of people in the North, are now shadows of their former selves. Young people, seeing this scenario, are packing their bags for the South, where opportunities seem endless. The North has its natural beauty, the Adirondack Mountains, the Finger Lakes, Niagara Falls, but beauty doesn't pay the bills. The transportation nightmare. While New Yorkers in the big city enjoy one of the most complete subway systems in the world, the upstate lives a very different reality. Here, having a car is not a luxury. It is a matter of survival. Public transportation? Practically non-existent. In Rochester, a major city in the region, You can get there faster by bike than by waiting for the bus. The roads of the north are a minefield of potholes and crumbling asphalt. While billions of dollars are being invested in the big city's subways, the highways of the north languish, waiting for repairs that never arrive. For those who rely on their cars to get to work, shop, or simply visit friends, every trip is an adventure, and not the fun kind. The lack of investment in infrastructure is not just an inconvenience. It is a real barrier to growth in the region. The tax bite. New York City has a reputation for having some of the highest taxes in the United States, and this reality hits the upstate hard. Even with a lower cost of living than Manhattan, property taxes are so high that owning a home in the area can cost as much as living in the city's most expensive neighborhoods. The problem goes beyond property taxes. Gas taxes are among the highest in the country, making even driving an increasingly expensive luxury. It's no surprise that many families are fleeing to states like Pennsylvania or the Carolinas, where they can breathe a little easier when the tax bill arrives. A ray of hope in Lafayette. All is not lost in upstate New York. Beacon's Skiff Orchard in Lafayette is proof of that. Voted the best apple orchard in the United States, this family-owned business is a jewel in the middle of chaos. With 20 different varieties of apples spread across a picture postcard setting, the place has become much more than a farm. Visitors can sample artisanal ciders in the tasting room, purchase freshly baked treats from the bakery, or simply relax with family in the picnic areas. Live music and seasonal festivals have transformed the orchard into a tourist hotspot that draws people from all over. It's a prime example of how innovation and tradition can go hand in hand. Troy. Troy was once an industrial powerhouse that made the rest of the country drool with envy. Just imagine, in the 19th century it was the 16th largest city in the United States and the 4th richest. Its iron, steel, and textile factories were never quiet. Money was flowing freely, and everyone wanted a piece of this industrial paradise on the banks of the Hudson River. But the story has taken a dramatic turn. Today, Troy has been blacklisted by the FBI as the 10th most dangerous city in New York. The streets that were once filled with working-class people are now known for muggings and drug dealing. Some entrepreneurs are trying to give the city a new look, opening trendy restaurants and craft breweries. But it's like putting a Band-Aid on a compound fracture. The problem goes much deeper. The city that was once synonymous with wealth is now struggling to keep the lights on. Utica. Utica is one of those cities that you look at and think, wow, this place has seen better days. The streets are more littered with trash than people, and there are so many abandoned buildings that you could make a horror movie without needing a set. The police are struggling, trying to keep up with drug trafficking and property crimes with a staff that can barely cover a shift. The scariest part? The average income here is also less than $17,000 a year. The houses are cheap, but they come with an unpleasant surprise. Many are contaminated with lead. It's like buying a Ferrari for half the price, only to find out that the engine is broken. Pollution is through the roof. Access to healthcare is through the roof, and the residents, well, those who can, are packing their bags and heading for less toxic horizons. Syracuse. If there's one place that seems to have been cursed by Jack Frost himself, it's Syracuse. The city seems to be stuck in an eternal winter, the kind you only see in fantasy movies. The days are so gray and endless that even the clocks seem to run slower here. But the cold isn't the only villain in this story. Syracuse is in such a bad place that people have started comparing it to places like Flint, Michigan. And that's not a compliment. The city's universities try to bring some life and movement, but it's like trying to light a fire in the snow. It barely catches fire and goes out. The students, as soon as they get their diplomas, they run away like they're running from a dragon. Empty buildings are like rotten teeth in a mouth without a smile. The job market? More stagnant than water from a well. Those who have an education end up taking low-skilled jobs just to avoid being idle, while dreaming of packing their bags and leaving for any place that offers a better future. Buffalo. Buffalo is the second largest city in the state, famous for its American football team, the Bills, and its 4 consecutive Super Bowl losses, a story that sums up the city's fortunes. Located along Interstate 90, Buffalo was once a symbol of the American dream. Today, it struggles daily with poverty and violence. The city retains its historic charm and passionate fans, but the numbers don't lie. The economic downturn has turned many neighborhoods into war zones. The factories that once made the city prosperous have closed their doors, leaving behind not only empty buildings but generations of workers without prospects. It's a sad story, that's repeated in many cities upstate New York. Binghamton. With just 45,000 residents, Binghamton proves that size doesn't matter when it comes to problems. The city has the fourth highest crime rate in the state, and violence has become a common occurrence here. Unemployment? Sky high. Families struggle to pay the bills in a place where job opportunities are rarer than snow in the summer. As if that weren't enough, the city has become an involuntary destination for homeless people sent from New York City. It's as if the Big Apple is using Binghamton as a backyard for its social problems. The already overburdened public services can barely handle the needs of those who are already here, let alone the new arrivals. It feels like a boat taking on water on all sides, while the crew wonders if it's worth continuing to row. Albany. Just look at the irony. Albany is the capital of New York, but it is far from being a city worthy of that title. While politicians debate laws in the fancy government buildings, the reality outside is very different. Crack cocaine has become an epidemic that is devastating entire communities, and the number of homeless people is constantly growing. Public schools? A complete disaster. It's as if the city has created a machine to perpetuate poverty. Children enter the educational system already at a disadvantage and leave even further behind. Everyone knows someone who is trapped in this endless cycle of hardship. The worst part is that even though it is the state capital, Albany seems to have lost the ability to dream of better days. Herkimer is a city you've probably never heard of, but it's got quite a history. With just 12,000 inhabitants, you could see everyone in a week. The problem is that the news isn't always good. Since the 1970s, the city has been sliding downhill, and no one has been able to find a stop. The streets are lined with pawn shops and tattoo parlors, the kind of businesses that tend to flourish when times get tough. With an average income of a paltry $17,000 a year, residents are living in a tight spot. The schools are underfunded, the kids have no prospects, and crime is growing faster than the grass in the yard. It's the kind of place that makes you wonder why so many people are leaving upstate New York. Schenectady was once General Electric's darling, a city that shone with the power of innovation. But today, the glow has turned to darkness. The once vibrant downtown now looks like a post-apocalyptic movie set. The shuttered stores and abandoned buildings tell the story of a city that has lost its way. To make matters worse, a giant casino has taken over the city center. It was supposed to be a lifesaver, but it has become just another problem. Many people spend what little money they have on slot machines, hoping to win back what they lost when the factories closed. Union College still brings a breath of intellectual life to the city, but it is like a candle lit in the middle of a blackout. Beautiful to look at, but not enough to light up the entire place. Now I have an invitation for you. Are you seeing this video that is now appearing on the screen? Take advantage and click on it to watch it right now. Take advantage of the fact that I have separated it especially for you. Well, that's it. And until next time, Curious One.